we're going to have a little bit of a problem, but it's the old stuff that's the problem. And I'll explain that when we get into it. My name is Max Young, from the Department of Law, University of Luton. I'm actually the head of the law department there, so what I say goes. The stuff I'm about to show you, and normally it works, all of the stuff, is to be found here at www.legalmax, it's me folks, .freeserve.co.uk. That is not our university site. The FreeServe is, as you're probably all aware of, we have got free ISPs now in the UK. And this was the first big one to come up. And I use this for all my materials and for piloting stuff because it's much easier for me from home to upload to this site, play around with it, muck around with it. To get into the university site, I've got firewalls to get through and it makes it all complicated and difficult. So I use this, and this is my permanent site for my materials. The university site is www.luton.ac.uk. I'll give you a card later if you want that. Okay? What you all want to know is where is Luton. So can you all say through for me, please? Through, okay. Remember the oo sound. It is the University of Luton. Thank you, not Luton as you all say. That's the first, huh? The most important reason why you've come here is to find out where Luton is. And Luton is there. Just north of London, just outside the M25. 20 minutes on a fast train from the centre of London, and it is England's third airport. Stansted says it's its third airport as well, so we've got equal three. There's mainly package tours we do from Luton. There is some scheduled stuff. There's no international stuff. We don't count. We used to count Europe as international, but now we're part of it. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is, and the first part's going to be relatively short, is to look at some early CAL materials, and then they're all mine. Okay. I'm going to then trace that through. To look at the development of that onto the web, and then some help-based stuff I used, and some more web-based stuff. So I'm looking at the whole development of stuff. What I haven't heard much about in this conference is why people are actually doing stuff. There's been lots of, you can throw it up on HTML in this way or that way, you go on to demonstrations, but nobody's actually come out, or not many people have actually mentioned learning, teaching, learning styles, cognitive process, all this type of thing. So I'm quite interested in that. Okay. I haven't got a first degree in psychology or anything else. In the UK, we do our LLBs as our first degree, as an undergraduate programme. Okay. So I haven't got a previous degree in anything else. Not that that would be a help or a hindrance, I'm not quite sure. So I was going to say the beginning of the problem-solving council, what I was going to do is then actually look at this. And we all have this problem about how do you get students to actually look at problems. We have the advantage of having tutorials, so we can actually take students into a tutorial. It used to be 8 when I first started teaching, and we said we could never cope with more than 8. Then we went up to 10 and we said, oh God, that's dreadful. And we're up to 20 now, we're saying, well, that's the absolute limit. It's getting bigger and bigger. But at least we've got these groups where we can actually take students, give them a problem, and say, right, work through it. And students sit there and say, the answer is Fisher and Bell, or Boots, Cash Chemist, etc., whatever it is. Next problem, please. And you say, we're not particularly interested in that. How do you get that? How do you go through a problem? So I had this need to actually take students through step by step by step to analyse a problem. So I actually had an educational objective in designing the CAL. And I've never heard anybody at this conference yet say we're going to throw this stuff up because the educational objective is whatever. Okay? So I did all this. It's DOS-based and won't run it. I'll give it one more try. You never know. And the other advantage of this type of CAL, as far as I'm concerned, is, and I still think it's the best in the world still when it runs, is that it deals with free text responses of students. Apart from the first half of the first lesson when it's multiple choice and give students a guide. After that, students actually used to have got to use free text. So they've got to say in their answers, this point is significant, this component, as I call it, is significant because it's an offer. So they've got to type that in. And then there's a parsing technique, which isn't as difficult as people make out, and I'll sell you the secret for a lot of money. And it looks at that and then tells the student whether it's correct or not, and then moves on. It doesn't score it because it's not that good. It's not bad, but it's not that good. It's not perfect at parsing the text. So if it fails, it says, I don't understand that, and gives them, in the first case, some multiple choice to look at. Okay? Let's try it. So at least I had a reason for doing this. That's what I'm saying. The CALI tutorials are now supposed to pop up.
That's interesting.
It's got on the screen here, but not there. This is just a welcome page. And it comes up to that, and I should be able to type in Fred. I am actually currently registered, but for some reason it's saying not, so I'm saying no. I'm going to type in a password, and then it's going to go away. So we've lost that. I'm very sorry about that. That's about 15 minutes. Right, we're going to do all this stuff.
I'm working my carpet right now.
Right.
Max is on your side.
Yeah,
on your website.
It's on the free server. You can download it. The only thing, when you go to Legal Mac's website to download all this stuff, you've actually got to log in. There's a login page. You've then got I can show you that a bit later to make up the time. You then do the exercise, and then you can download either the DOS version or the web version or whatever's there. But there's a questionnaire to complete before you get the goodies. Can you encourage everybody to use it, download the stuff? What I want is the feedback from the questionnaires, because I'm very keen on evaluating stuff. Again, I haven't actually heard much at this conference about evaluating stuff. Okay? So one thing I haven't heard reasons why people are actually doing this stuff, and then I've not actually heard how it's been evaluated, apart from saying discussion groups are actually quite good. Well, we all know discussions groups are quite good if you can get people to cooperate and to participate, but you can't use those 6 students in every class out of the 110 or whatever there are. What I want to look at now is just a few points that came out of the evaluation of this original CALI. The first thing I looked about is discussion in CALI. And this also applies, these lessons, the message I'm going to put is, we've come a long way in the technology. We've got new delivery systems now. We're forgetting the history of what's gone before us very quickly in this area. I mean, as lawyers, we're good at history. We're good at saying, well, there's a recent case 60 years ago, or there's a recent case 100 years ago. But I've been going to conferences in the UK, well, ever since this sort of thing was invented. And there are younger people now coming along, doing new web-based stuff and things, and saying, well, we've been trying this out, we've been trying to evaluate it, see if it works, and some of us older people, some middle-aged, younger type age, have been putting around and saying, we did all this 10, 15 years ago, it's actually all published. And people are not talking about legal research skills, people aren't using those skills to actually go and look at journals for this. So there's a lot being sort of reinvented. All right, it's web-based, the stuff we looked at was CAL-based, but it's the same sort of thing, the methodologies are the same, just a different piece of paper we're drawing on. So I looked at discussion in tutorials. Everybody said CAL will get rid of discussion in tutorials. Okay? Nobody will discuss anything. More relevant student discussion goes on in CAL tutorials than it does in conventional. This is the modern version of this is your chat groups, is your discussion groups on the web, etc. You put students in pairs, or in the early days, where on Apple IIs, and we didn't even have enough computers to go around for pairs, put them in 3s, and get them to go through this sort of CAL material, and they argue with each other like mad, and it's really good discussion. They discuss the problem, what they should be doing, the sort of thing you wish they would do in class. And a lot goes on it. And if you've got the number of computers we have these days, we haven't got many at Luton, but some of your law schools have. If you're doing this type of exercise, make the students sit together, make them work in pairs, or team up even if they've got a computer each. And what you find is the students talk to each other. Other students' pairs are going at different paces, and they all start to sort of lean into the centre of the room and start saying, have you tried question 7 or whatever? And it is really good stuff. You ought to go in there, leave a recorder going and come back out and come back an hour later and see what there is. And there's really good high-level stuff going on. And if we could just get them to do that in any form of class, it would be wonderful. So, don't forget these lessons, that's what I'm saying. Clarification of difficult issues. Students do not think that CALI tutorials compare favourably when it comes to students requiring explanations for difficult areas of the law or further clarification of tutorial problems. CALI isn't wonderful for everything. When it actually comes down to the detailed stuff, we haven't yet written programs that are detailed enough, even sort of help type systems. Students hate frequently asked questions. I keep trying to build up databases of frequently asked questions, and students don't like them. They won't participate in that. So they realise there's actually a job for us, which is good news for a lot of faculty, because when I've shown this over the years, I used to discuss, I got down to the point where people saying, aren't we going to be made redundant? So I used to do these sessions as auto-redundancy. People said, yeah, that's exactly what we're worried about. So we're still needed for something. Usefulness of the tutorials. 75% of the students disagreed that the CALI tutorials were a complete waste of time. Okay, be careful how you phrase your question.
A complete waste of time.
We've got evaluation forms at Luton which are wonderful. It goes down and it's, question, tick 1 is best, down to 5, and halfway down it reverses. So students go down either ticking 1, and this one particular area always comes out as all lecturers do it badly, and we say, turn the question round so the students can carry on the tick. And it's just because they don't read it, they get into a habit of ticking 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, they go down, come to this. It's like on our forms for our students going to Law Society. You just basically say yes or tick the first box and everything. But one of them says, has this student got any criminal convictions? And you go down, and then you put in the envelope and you think, hang on a second, I ticked the wrong box there. So you've got to learn from these things. So clarification, usefulness of tutorials. 68% agreed that CALI tutorials were a useful supplement to the course. Big difference again is the tutorial system. I mean, I remember sort of when CALI was being developed in the USA, and there was this debate between myself over in the UK and some of your early colleagues here who were developing CALI about, I was talking about it replacing tutorials, being replaced with a bit of supplement, etc. Whereas over here, of course, anything that the students really got was useful to them, however poor it was, because it was a supplement. Yeah? You can, by the way, you wouldn't ask anything, just ask. If you want to disagree, you can disagree. I wouldn't accept your disagreement, but at least you can disagree. And here, 75% agreed that the tutorials were beneficial and should continue to be offered, which was quite reassuring. I did this over a number of years, etc. CALI replaces conventional tuition. This is what lots of colleagues at home got worried about. CALI can be used to replace part of conventional tuition, especially in teaching the methodology of problem solving. Well, I mean, I designed it to replace this particular process. One thing we have found over the years is it's better to incorporate it into the program, is to actually make it. So what we did is we actually replaced some of the conventional tutorials with CALI tutorials. We didn't say to the students, this is an additional thing you can go and find a way. You can go and find someone, because as you know what happens in those cases, the good students, computer literacy students, go in and use it, and sort of 90% of the students don't use it. If you actually make it part of their class and say this is part of the tuition process, etc., then they'll start to use it and they'll use it quite well. When we first started doing this, I was at Coventry in those days. When we first started doing it, we had my CAL students and parallel good scientific control, a control group who just had the conventional tuition. And the colleague who took the students for the conventional tuition was quite happy not to be involved with computers. By the end of the first year, he was saying, well, can my students just do a bit of the CAL stuff? Because they'd heard from my students. And so we then actually had to look at the experimental process and let them all be exposed to it. But that's the way things go. So CAL can be used to replace part of conventional tuition, or over here it would be an addition to the conventional tuition. I think, again, I think your problem would be is actually getting students enthused as to how to use it and why to use it. It's not assessed, therefore we won't do it. But it will teach you something that will be useful to you. Yeah, but it's not assessed. You can, of course, make it assessed by asking them to print this stuff out. It's fairly basic, I say it's DOS-based, but you can actually get them to print out the lesson as it goes through and bring those materials and go through and see how they've gone. That became actually a very valuable part of this process. I used to have a couple of classes of CALI tuition and then say that week 3 would be bring along your printouts and we'll go through the points you don't understand. And it really improved things. Students would come along and I'd say, well, you've done 2 or 3 of these lessons. How did you find it? Okay, what problems have you got? And they could go through the lesson and pick on particular points and say, this is what we don't understand. And we'd all guess it's the same sort of areas, it's the stuff we'd expect. But they could really get into that stuff. And the other thing it did was other stuff they had problems with going through it. When you'd say to them, well, didn't you find problems with something else? They'd say, oh, we did. But we've actually looked through this and had time to review it. And we've found it in the book and it's not a problem. It's really good stuff. CALI has a complementary role. CALI and conventional tutorials are different but complementary roles to play in the tuition of students. I don't think it's either one or the other. It's getting the product, it's thinking about why you want to do it, it's getting it into a deliverable state for the students and advertising it and getting it to the users and encouraging them to use it. By the way, this CALI validation dates back to 83 to 86. Okay? And the point that I said I'd make at the beginning is we were doing all this stuff and we're losing sight of the fact that we've done all of this evaluation. People say, does it work? How does it work? Prove it, etc. There's a talk about to happen here. There's a big hole with cables coming out. So if there's any lawyers in that fall down there.
It's okay, this is a law school, they have lots of people to defend them.
Right, WebCal, we're coming up to date now, okay, we're jumping forward a lot. Is it possible to teach? And we still get this idea that we as educators or we as law professors are teachers rather than students are learners, so I put teacher there in parentheses. Is it possible to teach users how to tackle legal problems by providing CAL law tutorials via the World Wide Web? Well, obviously I can't go into free text and that sort of stuff, so it falls back to sort of multiple choice and links and things, okay? So, as far as I'm concerned, we're moving down quite a lot by using this technology, but it's a technology that's up there, that's in our face at the moment, okay? Let's see this one works. This is not my browser of choice, it's obviously the default. Netscape browser of choice. Right, so what I did is I took, and you'll be able to see the idea of the DOS-based version as we go through this. I took the DOS-based version and put it into a hypertext type version. It doesn't make much difference for the first one, because the first one, even though there was some free text in that, was basically a very linear thing, except without any branches. Somebody was talking, John Fargo was talking yesterday, I think that John was talking about going through links. Oh, you were talking about it. Sorry, John was talking about that, remedial links and going through. This early CAL stuff did it, and did it seamlessly, and took people off remedial loops, jumped people. Also, what the DOS-based stuff does as well is when you come to a point on the 3 possibilities, you say, is this particular fact situation at this point, say, an offer, an invitation to treat, or nothing at all? And students could say an offer, and it would say, okay, take down that loop, and then once it's completed that part of the analysis, then hop back and say, by the way, you said this was an offer, could it be anything else? And then take them through the next. So take them through every possible loop. And students would have to keep reconsidering everything. Okay, any questions? Almost away. So right, the purpose of this lesson is to teach you how to analyse a typical contract law problem. Right, the way you analyse is to read the problem through first. Quite a good tip for students. Read the problem. Once you've read the problem, you must split the problem into its component parts, etc. I'm doing this fairly quickly. It's all like John to escape completely. And then I'm saying some parts of the question are irrelevant. I know I'm going through this very quick, but there's quite a bit. In order to do this, return to the start of the problem. So what I'm trying to do is get not to look at the whole problem and try to answer it as one thing, but to analyse it, go through it step by step by step. The problem. Our first problem that we always give, goods are displayed in a self-service store, customers request. So students look at this and say, remember that first case we did, Boots Cash Chemist. The answer is Boots Cash Chemist and the pharmaceutical site in Great Britain. Next problem, please. And we say, well, we know that, but let's look at some sort of analysis. First read all the problem. Now return to the start of the problem, select the first component, and there I've split it up into components, and they've got to sort of click on what they think is the first component. What's the first component? Which one should I click on?
Goods are displayed.
SWOT.
Yes.
Right, correct. First component is goods are displayed. And it's trying to get students to go through it like this. Let me just whiz through this a bit. Now consider the significance of goods are displayed. Is it no significance? Is it an invitation to treat, an offer, an accept? If this was the DOS version, they'd have to actually type all this in free text. Okay? But here we've got. So what is it?
Invitation.
Invitation? Ooh, another SWOT. Too easy. Should now give authority Fisher and Bell. Notice we don't say the versus or against, none of that common stuff. We say and. We're civil lawyers. It's very competitive, your system. Even in civil law, it's against or versus, isn't it?
By definition, it's an adversarial system.
Yeah. Well, we're more gentlemanly.
I see a V there.
If they don't say V,
No.
you say
And I tell my students, this is one of the tricks of being a lawyer.
or against.
No, sorry, against is criminal, tacky stuff.
Australian one.
That's it.
Well, the Crown against are normally criminal cases. Well, it goes through like this, and it goes through, I'll call it there, but it goes through like this, and at the end, if you actually go through this on the web, this is actually up on the web, then you'll get an evaluation form, which will all say it's wonderful because you want the goodies, and then you'll download the stuff. Where's me? Excuse me a second. I know you're in there somewhere. My original presentation. Where's it?
No, if you're close somehow.
Is it?
Yeah. You click that.
Actually,
If you go back to Explorer, there we go.
Chemist 01, HTML. That's your name. Chemist?
That would be what he did.
Camouflage? Is it camouflage?
I can't do two things at
I see.
where are we? Right. Now this bit is an evaluation of it on the web. And what we did was advertise that it was generally available. And it was free for anybody to sort of look at and come back and fill in an evaluation. I've just categorised these into a few groups. Local authorities and others. Our legal system with a local authority, I enjoyed the lesson very much and would like to have a go at others. So, excellent, easy to follow lesson, more please on other subjects. CAB, that's Citizen Advice Bureau. They are basically lay people who learn a bit of law and advise. Yeah?
That sounds scary.
They're actually better than most lawyers in their own particular areas, which is even more scary, I think. Law students. I'm reading for an external LLB degree, which might be relevant next week when we look at Chicago. I enjoyed this lesson and found it refreshing and easy to follow. Can you do lots more? Actually, what's very interesting with this is you get students at other universities who sort of log on and start using your materials and say, oh, this is really good, I wish we'd use it at my university, and my law professor's okay at this, but he's not very good at that. And they don't realise, of course, I know their law professor. So, jury, you can do lots more. Thank you, it's a great value. It helps to be taken through step by step, even though my lecture would not approve the use of just one case throughout. Okay, fair enough, but actually, if students can remember one case per problem, that's actually not bad, can it? Lecturers. We found it most interesting, all but a little repetitive, especially the constant re-displaying of the facts of the question. And we could push it with speed. When it goes to the next page, the whole thing is a new page altogether. So they didn't like that sort of thing. It doesn't make any difference with frames. But it's not bad for colleagues. We are lecturers at this institution. General public, interesting. I had no legal training and found the lesson worthwhile. I can't see your motivation for providing it. What's the catch? Thank you for an interesting educational insight into the working of another profession. Quite interesting people who get sort of... Now then, so it seems to be quite well made, even this sort of basic primitive stuff, and there seems to be quite a lot of demand for it. So future for web, CAL, a source, well, we've seen all this. This is what everybody's been talking about. We can throw all this stuff up onto the web. So a source of software lessons, electronic mail, discussion groups, textbook, testing. Oh, by the way, too, this web evaluation dates back to 1987, 1988. It wasn't actually HTML, it wasn't web. It was video text-based stuff, which was Prestel in the UK. Do you have your era of video text? On your TVs, do you have text screens which would hide behind and you could call up the sports results and news and that sort of thing? No?
Captioning. Good captioning.
Didn't you have a lot of that ending up at the schools? Right now, you had something called Channel 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of like
this was all done in the early... I used to work for a company called Luton, which did summaries and indexes and things of cases. And we were never really a competitor of Lexis because we were providing a different product. So I actually had the opportunity to put this up. So people actually had to spend quite a bit of money to do this because they actually had to find it, which was quite difficult. There weren't the search engines and things though in those days. And I actually don't know how certain people found it at all. It's quite amazing. We got such a response. But what I'm saying is, what you might think is sort of new and glitzy and all, right? How long has World Wide Web been around? This 4 years or something? Okay, 6 years. It's actually. There is stuff back there in the history where we were doing this before, where we were discussing the very things we've been talking about before. So it's not new. We've done the experiments, we've done the evaluations, etc. The big difference now is it's more glitzy, it's easy to put up, and that's the seduction of it. And that's the problem with it, it's too seductive. Twain come along, Lexis with their web course in the box stuff and say, look, it's dead easy to do, and people get so enthused and go away and say, I can do this. But what is it? What are you trying to do?
So Max, was that on Gopher?
No.
How did you get to it?
You had to. It was on Prestel, which was part of British Telecom, and you dial up. You had to have a special keyboard modem interface. You plug it into your television, so it was actually quite difficult to set up. And then it would send out. The reason it was video text because it would only send out alphanumeric characters and some block graphics, etc. And so it took me 3 hours to upload stuff when I was editing on this thing. Modem rates were really slow, you forget in those days. But I'm saying, we're talking about things these days as if they're new and fresh. They're not. We all know that from live. Now, Luton was not the web, but the East East Prestel, a video text-based system. Right, help Cal. We're coming up to date now. And no more, this was very old stuff type stuff. What I've tried to do is use whatever authoring materials are out there. Not your proprietary sort of things that various people develop, okay? Oh, sorry, John. Yeah, but the big one. This is based on Windows Help file. What I thought is actually Windows Help files are actually quite powerful pieces of kit, but they're not used properly. And so what I decided to do is put all of my sale of goods course into a Windows Help file. Now, what I was hoping to do, the great irony of all this, is that I spent quite a lot of time thinking about this, developing stuff, but at Luton, we're the newest university in England. Used to be the newest university in the UK, but there's a Scottish one that's newer, so we just say in England now. We're the lowest resourced university in the country, in the United Kingdom, and we haven't got the computers, so it's actually very difficult to get students to actually use this stuff. It's a real problem for me, especially. But anyway, I developed these materials, put my notes on, and as you will see in a minute, all being well, what I'm trying to do is to give them a complete set of materials, rather than giving them out sets of notes, which I've always done. Students like notes, and they're using quite a lot in my lectures, and they're all there looking at me rather than the tops of heads taking notes, etc. And I thought, well, let's do it in a better way. Let's give them the whole thing as a sort of workbook type thing, but something that's fully searchable, that they can cut and paste and they can arrange all. What I really want them to do, and what I wanted to evaluate as part of it, but as they haven't got the resources to do it, is to say to students, look, 40% of your coursework, Mark, will be you presenting a set of notes to me. And I wanted people, the serial learners would just, which most students are, would just print out all the pages and say, okay. But some of the ones that are more holistic or deeper learners, etc., would actually go in there and say, well, we can actually, you've got a certain structure here, but that doesn't suit me as a student. I'm going to structure the materials differently. And certain students did do this in the early days. The first year I did it, I insisted they used it. And I was away for the first 2 weeks of the course, so it was actually useful to have something there to say to the students, get on with it and use it. So I'm trying to provide a set of materials which the students can use, which they can explore, on which they can create their own set of constructivist type education. Constructivism, yes? That's one of the latest buzzwords, isn't it? And we keep changing the terms. But so help us sale of goods. So let's see. Right. It's been updated to modern form of Windows help file. If we click on contents, and that's the basic thing. You're all familiar with, I don't have to explain the things here. General principles, this is the whole topic about health and sale of goods. Seminar questions. Okay, the students have got the seminar questions, they've got all the materials here for the year. So here are the seminar questions. They can go away, they can prepare this particular type of, this particular question, question 2, through to question 5. Okay? So it's all there. We go back, and coursework is also there. Word limit 2000s, I will stop marking the coursework at the word limit. But I found that's the easiest way to deal with students that write too much. Is not to say, well, I'll mark it all, not necessarily mark it off. It's just to say, I will count to 2000, draw a line through it, and mark it on that basis. Don't know if you have similar problems? No? We don't do coursework, do we?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and it says here the expert system might help you. There's even an expert system in here, which I'll talk through in a minute. So general principles lesson plan. Always start off with some sort of lesson plan, read the textbook, especially the pages, and telling them there's a test at the end for them to do. It's for their own edification. Obviously it's multiple choice of some sort because we're talking about hypertext and we've got to click on it. Then we can go forward, more a set of goods, and then what are goods? Now this is what I really like about this type of thing. Goods are defined in section 61. Section 61 will pop up. You're on the same page. You're reading the page of text, you're reading the page of notes, you're reading the book. You're aware what section 61 is. You can click on it and section 61 is there. You don't lose your place. You're not going off in some sort of hypertext spaghetti. You're not going off and getting lost on this type of thing. Click on it again. Things not covered by the Act. And again, they pop up on the same page. They can relate one page to, and of course these days they can print the stuff out, they can copy and paste it. So they could, if they wanted, copy this page into the word processor, then take that and copy and paste it into the appropriate bit. They can organise the materials as they want to. Okay? And health topics. We've always got, I quite like this part, this development of health with the health file system, is you've always got this navigational aid. Before, you used to get lost all over the place, but I think this is very useful. So wherever you are, you can actually go down and say, actually, we're on general principles, let's do general principles, What are goods? Right, the next topic is goods excluded. And so we're getting pop-ups, pop-up within pop-up. And I think this is quite powerful, is trying to keep all the materials on the same page so students don't get lost and they can relate the materials to each other. If I can just close this. At the top you'll see it's got statutes, so Goods Act, and they've got complete access to the full text of all the relevant statutes. So they can go to that if they want to, they can copy and paste it and whatever into their materials. Cases, until I actually did this, I didn't realise how many cases I used. This is a one semester course, okay, sale of goods, and there are something like 300 cases that I mentioned. We don't do case method stuff. We just use a general principle, a few facts, then apply it. So we're not asking students to read 300 cases. Do you actually ask students to read 300 cases?
All the time.
Yeah. And how many do they read? They read them all, do they? So you go on to
Not one course.
things like, this is one course. So they click on Actual Engineering. There are no full text up here, okay? And this isn't linked into Lectures or Westlaw. It won't be linked into Westlaw because we don't have Westlaw. And so the students here can read the case and again can copy and paste, copy and paste it into cross-reference to the textbook, etc. So again they can build all the materials. Other cases, if I can find one, just refer to the book and just a one-liner. Prior importance, and they were taken as being given. So it's all there. Another very useful feature. I said when I did all this, I realised I had 300 cases, and no wonder students come up and say, which ones are we supposed to remember? All of them. If we go to back to health topic, index. There is. I've become sort of anal, really, as the expression goes, with indexing this. I know you can search for virtually anything in this. You can search for the case, the concepts, particular keywords, section numbers, etc. So what a student could do is actually go in and say, well, let's look for section 14. Section 14 there. And it tells me there's 3 occurrences of it. And I can go to that and find it. So what a student could do is if they're concentrating on a particular section in the Act, and I find it very useful because I don't know if it's the same with you, I'm sure it is. You say to a student, we've done a certain case. You say, well, we did that last week, didn't we, or the week before, or a section number. And, over the years, it becomes all the same to you, doesn't it? You think, did I do that last year, or did I do it last week? And I can never remember where it is in my notes. And this is very easy for me now to actually go and find the thing rather than actually flipping through stuff. I can actually go and find the stuff.
How do you build that index?
You've got to key it in as you create the help materials. These were originally almost handcrafted. I've now moved to RoboHelp, which is a fantastically powerful product. And as you'll see in a minute, I've converted using that into the HTML version. Okay? I think it's a very valuable and powerful learning tool, very useful for students. Students who've got computers actually take advantage and download it and take it away and use it, and they find it useful. Okay. I said I'd love to be in the position where we could have enough computers to make students. This is the web version. This was the web version. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Hang on a second.
Job. It was literally a job when I grew up.
So it isn't like Java.
Yeah, just something wrong with installation of this machine.
Oh, thanks. This works. What? The web version replicates this. Again, with the conversion when it works and everything's running in Java, you get the complete index. You get this type of thing, permanent on the screen on the left-hand side. And I could write it in a different way where it would vanish and you could call it up, etc. But again, I think it's a very powerful piece of aid for students because they can get the same, sorry, it's the contents, well it's both, but the contents as well. This would appear down the left-hand side of the screen and they can navigate around. And so they can always find out where they are and they can always, if they get lost in the spaghetti, the downside of the web version is that the nice pop-ups that you get with this, the nice pop-ups that you get with this type of thing actually just link it to another page. And so you've got to remember to use the back key in the navigator rather than trying to use the arrows that actually appear in the boxes. So for example, if you went to section 14 that I looked at in the web version, it would have a forward key and a backward key. Now the forward key would take you to section 15, back key would take you to section 13, not to the previous page. So you've got to learn using the web version that the navigational aids are quite as good, and they don't pop up on the page, they just complete a new page. I'm sure it's going to be improved, and I'm sure we're going to get more like this. And when that does, I think that will be a really good HTML version. By the way, this and the HTML equivalent are over 1,000 pages. This is why there are all these files that you saw. This is not a trivial thing to do. If you're going to do it properly, it's all right people throwing up a few pages of text on a website, etc. But if you're really going to go into it and really design the whole product, so this is it's over 1,000 pages long. I didn't have to handcraft all of it, but there's still a lot of coding, there's still a lot of... It probably took, and it started off originally as a set of notes, and then it got converted into this, and then it got converted into the web version, and there's some sort of technical bits of editing to go on. But it probably would have taken getting on for best part of a year to actually produce the whole thing. That's really, that's about as far as really it is. Okay, any questions?
Next, how is this affecting your whatever you do in the classroom?
Well, so unfortunately, not very much, because of our student act, we don't have a separate law school. We have a law department, not a separate law school like this, with their own separate facilities. So we don't have a law department, law lab. The students have to go down to our Learning Resources Centre, which is our library, where all the computers are. And students have got coursework and things to do, and if they do find a computer, they spend their time word processing and not doing these other things. And not all the computers are tied up to every facility. So the students that have got access are actually using these sort of materials. And when I first introduced this and just had this version of it, but in an earlier help version, basically the same thing, the people who really enjoyed it and really found it helpful were our part-time students who couldn't get in all the time, who could take this away. And virtually all of those found a computer to put it on, either at work or at home or at friends. And when I said, well, that's not working so well, I'm going to get rid of it, because I've done an evaluation of this as well. The first thing was I said, I don't think it's getting very well, we'll get rid of it. And they all said, no, it's a very valuable tool. And they really enjoyed it.
So you don't use this in the classroom?
No.
Supplementary.
It's supplementary, it's there, but I would use it. I mean, what I would like to do is to have a classroom like this, and to be able to use this and go to the cases and call up materials and highlight things and show them. I think that would be very useful.
Facilities.
Yeah.
In your case.
Yeah.
So we can find this on the web?
Yeah, on the legalmax.freeserve.co.uk. Okay. Any other questions?
And your preferred authoring tool now is RoboHelp?
It's RoboHelp, yeah. It's fairly expensive, I think, but it's a good tool. They're now doing a yearly maintenance, which we have not subscribed to. We'll just sort of buy it every couple of years and get the updated version. One thing it hasn't got, and I am looking at, just working out a way, is to put in some links so that students can actually communicate directly from the product rather than have to go to another link or whatever. That would be rather trivial to do. Discussion groups, well, you know, I think I probably would put the facility there eventually, as, you know, just on the basis that it might be used. I prefer listservs, actually, that type of thing. Again, though, we haven't got the computers for students to actually get into those discussion groups, so I'm looking at the idea, and if we get the machines, then I'll probably go that way. Students do use email, and we encourage them to use it. But again, it's for facilities. Hand it over to John.
Thanks. I'm not going to stand. I'll just sit. Maybe I'll stand. Get my back straight. I think one of the most interesting things of what you said, the CAL to web that I'm going to take from this is you know, you said something like, you know, this was back in 1987, as though that was a long time ago. And that's not a long time ago. And yet, you've gone through 3 or maybe 4 different iterations of systems. And I know that, you know, since I've been in law school computing since '87, you know, and the CALI lessons that I was looking at then, which were the DOS-based, written in Pascal. Interestingly, they've been writing lessons in Pascal since about the very late 70s, using UCSD in order to be able to deliver it on Apple IIs, Rainbows, Amigas, and IBM PCs. And they kind of got smart around '82 when they said, well, we'll write the program here, and we'll put the lesson over here in a text file, so that when we want to change it, we don't have to recompile. And then they started saying, gee, a lot of these questions are sort of the same, we'll do like a template sort of thing. And they actually had developed, I'm not kidding, a markup language for lessons where, you know, beginning question, end question, answer 1, answer 2, things like that. And when I joined CALI in '94, I'm pulling all these files out, and I swear to God they had the beginnings of HTML there. But in '89 they dropped the project because Toolbook came along and they thought they could do a cool multimedia with that. And it was like, you know, it was one of those time capsule. I want to go back. I want CALI to invent HTML. But an interesting thing about that was that started also on a mainframe system originally, where they would deliver the lesson from a centrally located mainframe to terminal. So Toolbook comes along, lots of exuberance, let's play around. They realize it's a very difficult medium to deliver stuff in because everybody has to learn how to be a graphic designer or an educational technologist. And then we get into sort of an iOS type mode, where we're developing more lessons that are multiple choice question based, but have lots of branching. Now we're putting them up on the web, and we're looking an awful lot like we have a central delivery system doing questions. It's like a Back to the Future type of scenario. And yet we've come through 4 or 5 different iterations of authoring systems in 10 or 12 years. And I predict that that will go on for another 10 years. And that given that scenario, it's not a good idea to say, well, now we've solved it. And now we've solved it. You know, it's better to design for the fact or live with the fact that we're going to have lots of rapid or constant change in our environments. And so I'm trying to pull the content into a model that can always work in somebody else's software, sort of a repurposable content. I'm trying to shrink this stuff down to little tiny pieces so that if people say, well, then this new model, you know, it's better to deliver it up in, you know, in this sequence or in this delivery modem method or something, so that it can easily be done. Which is opposite from what happened in the last 10 years. That Pascal stuff cost us blood to get it in the Toolbook, which cost us even more blood to get it out of Toolbook and into something else. And it's just ridiculous that, you know, some of our lessons have been retyped a half a dozen times depending on the delivery mechanism that we wanted to put them in. So 12 years, not a long time. Lots of different delivery systems. Get ready for more of the same, because the internet isn't done yet. It's getting faster and faster, and as video becomes a ubiquitous medium, we're going to start saying, well, why don't we just do that with, you know, talking heads? Why don't we do that with live action stuff? You know, why don't we all have television studios, one television studio per classroom or per school? Why isn't every office just a television studio? Television studio in a box, You know, that sits on top of your computer, has the lights, has the excellent sound, and allows you to do whatever you want. You can imagine the production facilities like an entire printing press or an entire copy shop, all reduced down to laser printers and desktop publishing. Well, television studios and that type of quality production reduced down to instantaneously deliverable sort of thing. And so that's sort of where, you know, from CAL to web to more of the same is what I guess I'm saying. Any ideas or comments on that?
Yeah, because I think that goes back to what Max was saying earlier. When you say, I see exactly where you're going with that, John, that, you know, why don't we just put a video camera in? But have we really decided that talking head delivery of information is better than students going in and working with written problems and doing their own independent work, which is better? You know, yes, the technology is there to deliver the talking head, but maybe we don't want the talking head, you know, all of the time. Maybe the better delivery would be that students are getting raw information, rearranging it to the way they want to rearrange it or not, or doing other things with it. So even though the technology is up to that point, maybe we want to stay with something else.
Absolutely.
And that's why we have to, I think what is our objective and what is the best learning method for people.
Absolutely. And here's the bad news. It doesn't matter whether we think it's a good idea or not, or if we have, it almost doesn't matter if we, I'm saying this as a criticism of the world, not of any individual. It seems that what rules is if we can do it, you know, why should we do it? Because we can. You know? And so when video becomes ubiquitous, there's going to be a whole bunch of experimentation in using video to see if it's an appropriate educational delivery medium. Just like there was when we could do things on the web, even though we could only do them poorly, or when we could do them with multimedia, even though we could only do them poorly, or things like that. The ability seems to create the desire to do the experimentation. And in worst case, to backfill that with, well, we can justify doing this because in some cases maybe video does work. You know? And in some cases, of course, you know, there's an awful lot of that. This hammer will hit all the nails on the head, things like that. So all I'm saying is, you're right, there should be more evaluation, more goals before things, but it's really hard to do that with faculty. And what I mean by that with law faculty is, in order for them to write a lesson, I asked them, well, what's your goals, what are your educational theories or things like that, and they're not trained in teaching or training. And when I go to the literature to say, well, what's the best way to develop electronic teaching materials, man, is it all over the place. Nobody knows. And so my model becomes, well, I'm going to give the tools then to the people on the ground, the people close to where the students are, and say, you experiment with what you think is most appropriate, and then report back, and we'll share that with the community. And hopefully, the community will become one of, you know, best practices and incremental improvement in ideas.
I think what I agree about, people always ask, say, well, which learning method style do students use? And you say, well, actually, there's all these styles, and they use all of them at some time or other. Depends on how they feel in the morning, all this sort of thing. And this is why I finally got, by the way, the web version running live on the web. Normally, we actually, of course, bring everything on disk to make sure that the web doesn't crash. And this time, it's actually worked the other way around. This is why I think something like this is very useful, because you can say to people, okay, there are learning styles, and if you want, you can go from page one of this and just keep clicking forward, basically. Or you can try and use it and build in the same way that I want. So I think what I'm trying to do these days is when I'm designing something is not design it for a particular learning style or a particular person, to try and make it as flexible as possible and to build it in. And anyway, there it was from in there. Sorry.
Really two things I wanted to say. If the situation is, and I completely agree, that there are things that are possible and they get done just because they are possible, but on the other hand, we have educational goals, and we want to be able to fulfill our goals, and I think it has a really important consequence for the kind of tools that we want to develop and to use. I think that the tools have to be modular. We don't want one system that fits everybody. We want tools that allow us, depending on a certain situation, to provide big chunks of text, because it's a situation for reading. We want a tool that allows us to use talking heads, video, whatever, We don't want a system that locks us in one idea about how teaching moves. That's one thing. The other thing that I find especially fascinating was the historic perspectives that you have been showing. I don't know that much from educational applications. I know it from database applications. Is the cost, the enormous cost of keeping things alive over time. And I swear I've heard at least 3 people during this conference saying the important criterion for using something for me is how far can I start? And I think that's the least important question. For me, the most important question is how easy is it to get out of it? And I'm really, really, really worried by the tendency towards proprietary educational systems that will once again lock people and their data into something. And if once made a decision, 5 minutes, and we are in there for the next 5 years.
That's back to John's rekeying stuff 4 times.
Repurposeful.
I mean, this stuff at least is all developed in a word processor, so the basic text and stuff is there, and it's easy to strip out and it's easy to manipulate, so I don't have to rekey all this all the time. So that's a big advantage these days. Whereas the early stuff all had to be hand coded. I mean, it was just a computer language. It was written in Pilot and Super Pilot.
Sure. It's compiled.
Yeah.
I think that's all we've got to say, but more discussion, or feel free to take a break because I think there's some pops out there. Chris?
I maybe temporarily sensitized to this issue because I'm going to talk about this in a half hour. It seems to be one of the biggest causes of this cycle of the safety over and over again is the unnecessary mixture of educational methodology with data code. And I wonder if you've lived this experience firsthand. I wonder if you could comment on how much of the sort of blood that you sweated over multiple transitions would have been made simpler if there were sort of standards for annotating your data, having your video data, having your text, having your sound.
No question. Absolutely no question whatsoever. That's why XML, SGML, as a methodology, if not, in actuality, is where we want to be. And in some ways, some of my early ideas on CALI author and on the LessNets and things like that, at one point I wanted to do a CALI CBT DTD, question, answer, and see if I could understand it. I realized that was to attempt to divide a DTD was like trying to smelt iron in order to, build a railroad. I'll let somebody else figure that stuff out, but I'll come to it from my end. And the IMS project is essentially that. It's meta tagging learning objects. So thank God somebody that's happening someplace else, and we'll try to conform to that when they can agree. And that's the problem. They're having trouble agreeing.
Can I just say that there is a reason why all this stuff is lost. And that, of course, is none of us get any credit either in this jurisdiction or our own jurisdiction for faculty tenure or for professorships or anything else. So I have a big problem with the department. Younger colleagues come along and say, and we're quite into teaching in my department, what a surprise. And they come along to me and say, this is very interesting, what should we do? We'd like to do so. And I say, well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the students are concerned, they really appreciate you doing it. But if you're actually thinking of a career path, then forget all this stuff and actually go and write articles. Yeah. Well, it's not a question until you're tenured. I mean, we don't have that same problem. We do permanent employment, we just employ like anything else. But if you want to advance, if you want to get promotion from, into SLs to PLs in the next department, it's difficult to do. So this is one of the reasons. It's tying with all the different authoring languages and the way things are expanding, but it's also tied in with our own tenure systems and promotion systems.
Which will change.
Well, I was in a department, so that's at least some sort of improvement.
Maybe not change. Great, thank you very much.
If anybody actually wants to play with the web